Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Journalism and New Media Studies, SOJNS, Postgraduate Diploma in Audio Program Production, PGDAP, MGM003 Recording and Editing, Block 1 Recording, Unit 1 Sound Broadcasting Chain, 1.0 Introduction. In course MJM00 you have studied the various formats used in audio program production. Having read the different types of sounds, you must be thinking about how to record them and transmit them for broadcasting. This is just what this course deals with. Broadcasting is a complex technical process which requires the interconnected operation of electronic equipment and systems such as microphones, mixers, amplifiers, transmitters, etc. The total system consisting of all these equipment which are required for achieving of this task is known as broadcast chain. As the name suggests, broadcast chain is a sequential process. That is, the program which we generate at source travels from one electronic device or equipment to another in a serial fashion till it is finally received by the listener through his her radio set. Each of these equipment which comprise the chain have a specific technical function to perform. Any malfunction, defect or failure in one or the other equipment causes a disruption or defect in the whole process of broadcasting, much like the breakage of a single link causing the whole chain to be broken. Depending on the magnitude and sophistication of a radio station's infrastructure, the elements comprising its broadcast chain vary in complexity. Nowadays, we have varieties of radio stations ranging from single-person operated, single studio, can program stations to high-end, multi-studio, multi-channel, program-producing networked stations with remote switching facilities and redundancy features built in. The details of the broadcast chain accordingly differ from station to station. In this unit, we will discuss the essential links of a typical sound broadcast chain and how the overall process of sound broadcasting and its reception take place. 1.1 Objectives. After reading this unit, you will be able to times discuss the overall technical system of audio broadcasting and its reception. Times identify specific areas of interest within the technical system which are important, and times describe the technical issues involved in day-to-day studio operations. 1.2 Basic description of a broadcast chain. Any radio broadcasting system can be understood as consisting of the following major subsystems. A. The studio center. B. Studio to transmitter link, STL. C. The transmitting center. D. Radio propagation medium, and E. Reception system, radio set. The studio center is the place where the programs are recorded, edited, produced, and played back at the time of transmission. In the case of live broadcasts, the studio center is again the origin of the programs with thousands artists, performers, announcers, newsreaders operating from one or the other studio of the studio center. Even in the case of OBS outside broadcasts, the events being broadcast from the OBS spot are invariably routed through the studio center for convenience of switching and other technical reasons. Thus, the studio center becomes the eventual outlet for all programs. The programs emanating from the studio center are transported electronically to the transmitting center through the studio to transmitter link, STL. This is because, in most cases, broadcast transmitters are located several kilometers away from the studio center, usually in the outskirts of the city. In practice, STL can be any one of the several technical Options available which include telephone lines, coaxial cables, microwave link, FM radio. Link it. The transmitting center is the place which houses the radio transmitter and the antenna system, with the help of which the programs are transformed into radio frequencies and radiated in the form of electromagnetic waves. In the case of radio stations broadcasting multiple channels, say Delhi A and Delhi B, also known as Indraprasth channel and Rajdhani channel respectively, the transmitting center may house all the concerned transmitters and the antennas in the same place. Alternatively, a transmitting center may contain just one transmitter to cater to a single channel station. In either case, note that a separate transmitter with a distinct carrier frequency is essential for each broadcast channel. For example, Delhi A channel is broadcast through a transmitter which operates at a carrier frequency of 809 kHz medium wave, while Delhi B is broadcast through another transmitter operating at a carrier frequency of 1020 kHz, again in the medium wave. The audio signals, programs, delivered from the studio center through STL are modulated onto the carriers generated by the respective transmitters. Then the modulated RF, radio frequency, power is fed from the transmitter to the antenna. From the antenna, the RF power gets radiated outwards in the form of electromagnetic waves, also called radio waves. The nature of radio waves is such that their propagation follows different paths depending on the carrier frequency of transmission. Frequencies in the medium wave range, roughly 300 kHz to 3 MHz, travel through ground layers, while short waves, 3 MHz to 30 MHz, travel skyward, get reflected by the electric charges in the upper atmosphere and reach places several hundred kilometers away. In general, megawatt broadcasts are limited to a radius of around 200 kilometers, while SWs can reach, under favorable conditions, as far as 4,000 kilometers. FM, frequency modulation, radio, on the contrary, can provide only line-of-sight coverage that is, at best, about 60 kilometers. Radio receiver technology has undergone a sea change with the invention of transistor. Before that, the sets were, like the present-day TV sets, heavy and bulky, consuming a lot of battery electric power and requiring a long outdoor aerial wire to pick up the broadcasts. Since 1960s, the transistor radios have made rapid inroads into people's homes as they became increasingly portable, trouble-free and economical on power consumption. Nowadays, pocket-sized single-band radios, also called transistors, are the most popular common man's possession all over the country. The radio medium owes its universal reach largely to these tiny devices which form the last link in the broadcast chain. Before we take a closer look at the various subsystems that comprise the broadcast system, first let us attempt the following exercise. 1.3 Studio Center. As we learnt in the previous section, the studio center is the source of all programming. This is the place where all recordings, editing, dubbing, mixing, live broadcasts and announcements during transmissions take place. In the case of outside broadcasts, the feeds from the op spot are invariably routed through the studio center, so the studio center becomes the focal point of all program generation and distribution. A studio center may have just one studio or many studios designed for recording different kinds of programs. Apart from studios, the center will also have facilities such as editing rooms, a control room, and other related technical facilities. The layout of a typical studio. center containing a complement of 3 studios is shown in the figure below. Layout of a typical studio center. Look at the screen. You will notice that the 3 studios are earmarked for specific purposes, e.g., talks, music, transmission, playback. This is because, ideally, different kinds of programs need to be recorded in different acoustic conditions. This aspect is taken care of while designing the studio structure and its acoustics. Acoustic design of studios is primarily concerned with two parameters, namely noise level and reverberation time. Noise level. Common sense tells us that the noise level, that is, unwanted ambient noise, inside a studio, should be as low as possible. The sources of noise in a studio are the noise caused by airflow through AC ducts, leakage of external noise from adjoining corridors and rooms, and noise traveling through the building structure itself, vibrational noise. TLE acoustic design of studios should be such that all these noises are screened out as much as possible to make the studio soundproof. Engineers quantify the noise level inside a studio with the help of internationally standardized noise curves known as NC30, NC20, NCs, etc., lower NC. Figures denote better soundproof condition. Present-day high-end Radic broadcast studios the world over conform to the NC standard. The audio studios of the Electronic Media Production Center of IGNOU and several AIR studios are examples of this kind. Reverberation time. Sound produced inside S_G_O travels outward, gets reflected from the studio walls, travels in a reverse direction, again gets reflected, and so on. The net result of these multiple reflections prolong RH, life of a sound signal a little while, even after the cessation of the original sound. The phenomenon is called reverberation and is measured in seconds. Reverberation adds luster and bulk to the sound and adds to its richness. This is considered very desirable for music programs up to a point, or else the music will sound dead. Too much reverberation, however, causes boominess, overlapping of individual sounds, and loss of intelligibility. Hence, reverberation is a definite drawback for spoken word programs. The generally accepted reverberation time for a talk studio is 0.3 seconds, while for a music studio it can be around 0.7 seconds to 1.8 seconds. The required amount of noise isolation and reverberation are achieved in studio by times double door entry, sound lock area, times covering the studio walls with acoustic material and the flooring with linoleum or thick carpet, times designing the door seals and observation windows in such a way as to prevent leakage of sound, times reducing air velocity through air conditioning ducts and lining the ducts with sound absorbent material, times constructing the studio walls in a non-parallel fashion, unlike normal rooms, to prevent multiple reflections, and times constructing the studio shell itself on a separate foundation, isolated from rest of the building structure, to prevent vibrational noises. 1.3.1 Multipurpose studio. Smaller production houses cannot afford to create separate studios for individual purposes, like talks, drama, music, etc. In their case, a single multipurpose studio is the answer. The reverberation time of a multipurpose studio can be designed to be as low as possible to make it suitable for talks. When it has to be used for music or drama, reverberation can be added. Electronically, such electronic devices are available and are common as a part of the control room setup, in the right magnitude. 1.3.2 Transmission Studio. In Rahe Studio Center shown in the figure on page 9, Studio 3 is designated as the transmission studio. This is for the purpose of playing back pre-recorded tapes interspersed by live announcements, etc. in a predetermined sequence. The number of transmission studios, also called as playback studios, would depend upon the number of broadcast channels that the station handles. All India Radio's Broadcasting House (BH) studio complex in Delhi, for example, contains 36 studios, some of them for production and the rest for transmission. 1.3.3 Announcer Booth. You would have noticed that an announcer booth is attached with the production studios, while the actual program, talk, discussion, drama, music, concert, etc., takes place inside the studio. The announcer booth serves various related works like keeping continuity with programs from other studios, linking announcements, playing filler music and pre-recorded material, playback of pre-recorded ed music into the studio, etc. To facilitate these tasks, an announcer booth is equipped with the following: times a signaling lamp, red in color, in the booth, but operated by the control room, as a cue to the announcer to start a program. Times signaling keys to activate a similar red light in the studio to start program from the studio. Simultaneously, a red lamp outside the studio also glows as a warning signal for outsiders that the studio is now live. Times a synchronized clock for accurate timekeeping, master clock in the control room with its slaves in all announcer booths and studios. Times listening facilities for ongoing programs from the studio as well as from other studios. To facilitate accurate switch over from one program to another. Times a talkback mic, speaker and headphones. Times an announcer microphone. Times audio mixer or announcer console, and times playback facilities for pre-recorded materials, tape deck, cassette deck, etc. As most of the recorded material in broadcast studios is on open-reel quarter-inch tape, the tape deck is the foremost among the equipment provided in the announcer booth. Other playback facilities may include the audio cassette decks, DAT, digital audio tape player, and CD player. Turntables, gramophone disc players, which were the mainstay of broadcast studios in the past, have almost faded out because of technological changes. An audio mixer is also provided in the booth, which the announcer operates for fading in or out, and also to crossfade the programs for a smoother changeover from one program source to another. The audio mixer not only controls the sources within the booth, but also the microphones in the studio as well as the signaling lamps. 1.3.4 Microphones. The primary source of audio in any broadcast studio is the microphone. It is an indispensable device for audio recording, whether inside the studio or outside. In the next unit, you will study microphones in greater detail and how to use them effectively in program production. At this stage, the following particulars may be noted for a preliminary understanding of the subject. Microphone, mic for short, is a device which converts sounds into electrical signals. These electrical signals are further amplified and processed in succeeding stages of the broadcast chain. There are different kinds of microphone plus to suit different occasion, places and purposes. From a programmer's standpoint, TL, are two broad categories of microphones. Omnidirectional microphones, these are mics which can pick up sounds from any direction equally well. When such a mic is placed at the center of a table with the persons seated all around, all the voices will be picked up by it without any discrimination. In studios, unidirectional mics can be used for group discussions and multi-way interviews, as a single mic would suffice the purpose and provide operational convenience. Unidirectional microphones, these are mics which can pick up sounds only in one direction and relatively less from other directions. In other words, unidirectional mics are like a sensitive ear in the direction in which they are pointed, whereas they are relatively deaf to sounds coming from all other directions. These mics are much more sensitive than omnidirectional ones in the particular direction in which they are pointed, so they can be used to advantage for pickup of sounds from a distance, e.g. in outdoor locations, sports, events, etc. In the studios, unidirectional mics can be used as announcer newsreader mics. And in radio plays, bidirectional, in between the omni and unidirectional mics, there are mics with directional patterns like bidirectional, which can be used for specific purposes. These are dealt with in detail in Unit 2 of this block. 1.3.5 Audio Mixer. Audio mixer is the generic term for the announcer console. From an operational viewpoint, an audio mixer can be understood as an equipment to which all the sources in the studio and announcer booth, microphones, tape decks, CD player, etc. are connected and from which the selected sources at any time can be passed on to the succeeding stages of the broadcast chain or for other purposes like monitoring, recording, editing, etc. Like other electronic gadgetry, audio mixers too are available in a wide range of models, facilities, and technical features. Professional-grade audio mixers used in broadcast studios are expected to contain the following standard features. Times a minimum of 8 channels, that is, 8 different sources, can be kept connected to the mixer, say, 3 or 4 microphone channels and the rest for tape deck, CD player, cassette player, etc. Bigger recording studios meant for a Western orchestra use many more microphones simultaneously, and therefore the channel capacity of the mixer too needs to be larger in their case. Times. Each of the channels will have provision for equalization, pre-fade, listening, and a LTP tilde tada for a gradual fading in or out of the sourcage. Equalization means the facility to selectively attenuate, weaken, a portion of the audio spectrum to improve the clarity of speech or for some creative effects. Tilde dash. A master fader for overall control of the audio sources, while the channel F control the individual sources, the master's fader controls the outputs of all the sources WH, say. Channels have been faded in, that is, the mixed audio. Tilde auxiliary features such as monitoring, cueing amplifiers, muting of loudspeakers in the studio whenever the studio mics are faded in, signaling facilities, etc. Times. While the above features may differ in details, in all cases, it is the audio mixer which combines the program sources of a studio and gives out the composite progrenune from the announcer booth to the control room. You will study about mixers in greater detail in the next unit. 1.3.6 Control Room. Control room is the focal area at which all the technical activities in a studio center converge. Engineers in the control room have overall responsibility for the technical operations in the studio setup at large, for switching off broadcast feeds to the transmitting center and incoming feeds from external sources. In particular, the following functions are carried out in the control room. Times to receive programs online from each studio through the respective announcer booth and from external sources like the radio networking terminal, OBSPOT, etc. Times to distribute the program to respective transmitters, other radio stations that may be forming a network for program exchange, satellite uplink facility, or to any other destination. Thus, the control room setup is primarily an electronic switching system. These switching OP tilde are performed by using a control console. The control console has provision FQ_ continuous monitoring of the ongoing programs either through headphones or loudspeakers, and to control their audio levels. The audio levels are carefully controlled, as too high a level will cause distortion and also overload the transmitter. On the contrary, too high of a level will cause poor signal-to-noise ratio and, ultimately, poor reception in the radio sets. In very large studio complexes, a separate master switching facility is also employed, in addition to the control room setup. In this case, control room activity is essentially confined to monitoring and control of audio quality and levels, while the switching activities are carried out in the master switching facility. Aerial field. In the few cases where a transmitter is geolocated with the studio, this link can be a hardwired connection between the two. In all other cases, the option is among the following: times telephone lines, times coaxial cables, times microwave link, times FM radio link, times satellite link. Dedicated leased telephone lines are the most popular form of STL. Normal telephone lines have a narrow frequency response which is good enough for telephone conversation but not as a transparent medium for broadcast quality audio. Hence, the telephone lines used for STL are specially loaded for improved frequency response and carefully maintained to prevent breakdowns or loss of quality. Coaxial cable connection is generally more robust than a telephone line in its physical construction and performance. Coaxial cables have inherently less loss for signal transmission and protect the signals from crosstalk and other interference. For longer STL routes, coaxial cables are preferred over telephone lines. Microwave, FM radio and satellite lines offer wireless solutions for STL. In all these cases, the transmitting equipment, microwave transmitter, FM transmitter, satellite uplink, is installed as part of the studio center and the corresponding receiving system at the radio transmitter site. STLs of either kind, wired and wireless, have their own advantages and disadvantages. For example, a dedicated telephone line link is simple and easy to maintain but is prone to failure during rainy season and road repair works. Coaxial cable links are costly to install and maintain, but they can offer better quality over long-haul routes. Microwave and FM links can provide reliable service over short distances, provided that there are no natural or man-made obstructions for line of sight between the studio and transmitting stations. A satellite link requires a costly ground installation at the studio end, which becomes costly to maintain, apart from the expenses involved for use of satellite itself. But if a number of transmitters spread across the country have to be fed from the same studio center, the satellite link becomes very convenient and economical. We can appreciate that the STL is a crucial link in the broadcast chain, and even a temporary failure of it causes disruption in the broadcast schedule. Hence, In most cases, redundancy is ensured by providing one telephone line link and a backup FM link for the same STL. 1.5 Transmitting Center. We have studied earlier in this unit that a separate radio transmitter is needed for each broadcast channel. In the case of a radio station broadcasting many channels, the transmitting center houses as many INRL dual transmitters and contains an elaborate technical infrastructure and a sprawling aerial field with masts of different heights and shapes towering over the surrounding landscape. 1.5.1 Function of transmitters. Unlike the studio center, which combines in itself all the program production activities and the related technical activities, the transmitting center is devoted solely to the technical aspect of converting the audio signals into radio frequencies and radiating them all over the service area. The indispensability of the radio transmitter can be understood by the fact that, when the program from the studio center breaks down for any reason, a standby pre-recorded program can be put out from the transmitting center itself. No such thing can be done if the transmitter itself fails. Nothing will be picked up by the radio sets when the transmitter is not on or breaks down, so even a regret announcement to the listeners cannot be broadcast. 1.5.2 Modes of transmission. The technical processes which take place in a radio transmitter can be broadly understood as follows. Firstly, the transmitter generates the allocated RF, radio frequency, carrier, and it is this frequency that distinguishes the particular broadcast channel. Broadcast stations invariably announce this frequency in their opening announcements day in and day out as so many kilohertz or so many meters of wavelength. The incoming audio signal modulates the carrier in such a manner that either the amplitude, meaning the strength, or the frequency of the carrier is continuously varied in accordance with the amplitude variations of the audio signals from instant to instant. This modulated RF contains the ongoing program either in the form of its amplitude variations, called amplitude modulation, or frequency variations, frequency modulation. The radio transmitter also amplifies the modulated RF power to a sufficient level. The power output of a transmitter is specified as so many kilowatts for delivering to the transmitting aerial. The physical dimensions, length, height, of an aerial are the prime determinants of its radiation properties. For efficient radiation of RF power, the aerials are designed with their length, height as a simple fraction of the wavelength, usually half the wavelength. Also, it would be interesting to note that aerials meant for the megawatt band are always vertically installed. In fact, the steel mast structure, which stands on a base insulator with the help of supporting guy wires, itself acts as the aerial in the case of megawatt transmitters. Such aerials are known as self-radiating masts. In the SW band, the aerials are erected horizontally at a height by hanging them across the self-supporting steel structures like a gigantic clothesline. Aerials for FM radio broadcast are installed usually atop TV towers, very much like the TV aerials, as both FM radio and terrestrial TV operate in the VHF, very high frequency, band. There are, of course, deep technical considerations behind aerial design to handle the particular RF power level and frequencies, and to produce a particular shape of radiation pattern to suit the geography of the service area to which the broadcast station caters. 1.6 Radio propagation. We have seen that a few specific portions of the electromagnetic spectrum in the medium wave 300 kHz to 3 MHz, shortwave, 3 MHz to 30 MHz, and very high frequency, VHF. 30 MHz to 300 MHz bands are approved for audio broadcasting, and that propagation of radio waves differs considerably in the various frequency bands. Medium wave and short wave bands are also referred to as medium frequency, MF, and high frequency, HF, bands, respectively. It should be noted that wavelength and frequency are inversely proportional to each other, that is, shorter the wavelength, higher is its frequency. Propagation in the MFs takes place along the ground, and THLL Dore CND conditions play a role in determining the range of coverage as much as the power of the transmitter. See, other water bodies. Marshy soil are very good conductors of MF radio waves, while a rocky or desert terrain attenuates and constrains their reach. Typically, the range of a 100 kW MF transmitter under average ground conditions can be around 150 kRNS. Thus Delhi, which is broadcast through a 100 kW transmitter, can be heard up to Mathura, Kurukshetra, Hisar and Alwar. J. In the night hours, MFs reach much longer distances through a second propagation mode, called the sky waves. Under favorable conditions, the sky waves can reach destinations around 1000 kRNS and beyond. But the sky wave propagation is subject to the vagaries of the ionosphere and, in general, its reception cannot be as consistent and dependable as the ground wave. High frequency, that is, short wave, propagation depends totally on the ionospheric layers and their capacity to reflect these frequencies. Ionospheric layers are layers of the upper atmosphere which are electrically charged by the sun rays. The height of these layers above the ground keeps varying roughly in the range 80 to 120 kilometers (ELIA) and 200 to 400 kilometers (FIA), depending on the time of the day. They are also subject to seasonal and other long-term variations. A typical HF transmitting aerial radiates the radio waves skyward at an angle. When these skybound waves hit the ionosphere, one or the other of its layers reflect them earthward, somewhat like a mirror reflecting light. By careful frequency planning, HF broadcasts can be targeted to service areas located thousands of kms away from the transmitter. Most of the overseas services of All India Radio are through the HF broadcasts, as also of other broadcast organizations around the world. While the outstanding advantage of HF broadcasts is their long-distance reach, they are susceptible to ionospheric variations. Hence, reception on these frequencies is often characterized by severe fading and interference. Those of you who tune in the SW band on your radio even occasionally would testify how strenuous it is to get a clear reception of these signals for half an hour at a stretch. In the VHF, very high frequency region, the propagation of radio waves takes place almost in straight lines between the transmitting aerial and the radio set, so a clear line of sight is required without any major obstructions like hillocks in between. When the transmitting air is located at a height, the distance it can see all around increases. FM radio stations operate in the VHF band, and their transmitting aerial are generally located with TV aerials atop the tall TV masts to maximize the coverage. The main drawback of FM radio is its restricted reach because of the line of sight limitations. In spite of this, FM radio is becoming increasingly popular because of its excellent reception within the service area, without any noise or fading. for good quality music and as a local. Radio, FM broadcasting is an ideal medium. 1.7 Receiving Systel/1. The universal popularity of radio broadcasting, particularly in the rural and remote areas, is mainly on account of its simple reception mechanism, the radio set. This is the vital link in the broadcast chain. Rapid T_tilde. Logical advances have transformed the radio reception system from the heavy and bulky valve sets of the past, which adorned the rich and middle class homes till the 1970s, to the highly portable, virtually trouble-free transistor radios which have since become the routine possession of the poor and rural populations. In fact, the transformation is so complete that today the name radio set hardly exists in common parlance. Instead, we just refer to them as transistor sets or simply as transistor. There are innumerable types and models of these transistor sets to suit different applications, tastes, and pockets. Broadly, the following categories can be understood. Communications receivers, these are meant for professional use by broadcast organizations, radio amateurs, Huns, and other heavy-duty purposes. They have higher sensitivity, far superior to domestic sets, and provide special features like preset tuning, variable selectivity, motorized tuning, inbuilt meter for single strength indication, internal circuit features which can counter the effects of fading, channel noise, etc. They can be employed for monitoring of distant stations, radio relay, accurate assessment of reception conditions, etc. Two-in-ones, they are most popular in a home setting as they combine in one gadget the audio cassette recorder as well as the radio set. The facility to record off-air broadcasts directly without any need for external cords is their prime attraction. Other standard features include mains as well as battery operation, telescopic rod aerial for short wave and FM bands, ferrite rod aerial, fixed inside the set, for megawatt reception, detachable speakers, etc. In general, the SW band is split into two or more bands for better selectivity. Thus, the costlier models would contain more number of W bands, 1 megawatt band and 1 FM band mono stereo selection. Pocket radios, single band, megawatt only, radios of the size of a cigarette packet have become extremely common, and they work usually on a couple of size battery cells. Multi-band sets, including the FM band, are also available in the same size. Obviously, they are the kind of thing one would carry on travel, to the workplace, into the kitchen, to the bedside, or as you like. Periodical replacement of battery cells can be the only nuisance with these otherwise undemanding devices, but of course there too you have an option to use rechargeable cells. Car radios, specially designed for use in automobiles, they work on the 12V batteries, with the telescopic aerial mounted atop the vehicle. Do note that, irrespective of the category, all radio sets receive the broadcasts in the same way. The basic receptor is the receiving aerial. Communication receivers use externally installed aerials of different shapes and lengths, especially for HF reception, i.e., SW band. In all other receiver sets, it is the inbuilt telescopic rod aerial whose length and orientation are adjustable for best reception of the particular HF broadcast. Megawatt broadcasts are picked up by a ferrite rod aerial mounted inside the set. For best reception, the orientation of this has to be adjusted in the horizontal plane, and for this purpose, the set itself will have to be rotated. the radiation picked up by the aerial in all cases is too weak and needs amplification. The electronics inside the set firstly selects the particular broadcast station's frequency by the act of band selection and tuning, amplifies this particular radio frequency, downconverts it to lower order called intermediate frequency, detects the audio frequency AF signal by stripping off its carrier, amplifies the AF still further and delivers it to the loudspeakers or headphones. The end transducer is the loudspeaker headphone which converts the AF, which is all electrical signal, back into sound energy, which alone can be heard by our ears. 1.8 Sequence of events before a radio transmission. Having studied the overview of how the broadcasting process happens, let us also note the sequence of events that take place before and at the start of a typical radio transmission. Half an hour before start, the control room generates a 1 kHz continuous tone and feeds it to the transmitter via STL. The transmitter is switched on to full power and kept switched on for rest of the time. To begin with, the 1 kHz tone is also faded in for testing, but faded out after a few seconds, keeping only the blank carrier on the air. 10 minutes before start, the 1 kHz tone which is on the STL all the while is faded in up to about 30% modulation level. At this stage, the station can be tuned into by radio sets in the service area. You will hear the 1 kHz tone at a constant level on the set when you tune in. 1 minute before start, the 1 kHz tone is faded out by the control room and the signature tune of the station or the broadcast network is faded in. The fader control in the transmitting station is adjusted so that signature tune is faded in for full depth of modulation. A few seconds before start, the signature tune is faded out and a standard time signal in the form of discrete pips in 1 second intervals is faded in. The last pip denotes the correct time. Exactly at the correct time, the control room sends a signal to the announcer booth to alert the announcer to start the program. Simultaneously, the red WA running lamps are on outside the sound lock and inside the concerned announcer booth. The announcer fades in the recorded tape, Vande Matram, in the case of morning transmissions of AIR. At the end of the song, the announcer fades it out and fades 111 the announcer mic to make the opening announcement. This includes information about the station name, frequency and wavelength of transmission and then the name of the program to follow. Soon after the announcement, the announcer mic is faded out and the studio mic is faded in and the announcer gives the signal to the studio to start the program. This is in case of a live program from the studio. If the program is a recorded one, the announcer starts the concerned tape deck and fades in the relevant fader and the program starts getting broadcast. 1.9 Summary. In this unit, we have discussed the sequence of links that constitute a typical sound broadcast chain. Starting from the microphone, the broadcast signal passes through a train of equipment within the studio center, then passed on to the transmitter through the studio to transmitter link. The transmitter does the job of generating the radio frequency carrier, which then gets modulated by the audio program. The modulated RF, after amplification, is fed to the transmitting aerial which radiates the RF in the form of electromagnetic waves. Depending on whether the RF in question is medium frequency, high frequency or very high frequency, the propagation of the radio waves take different paths such as along the ground, via the ionosphere or through line of sight respectively. The receiver sets located within the service area of the broadcast station then pick up these radio waves and convert them back into the original sounds of the audio program generated by the station. Thank you for watching.